It was supposed to be the happiest day of Malik Johnson's life, a celebration of love. But instead, as dawn broke over Atlanta, the bright summer sun illuminated a scene of horror. The charismatic, beloved rising star lay motionless behind the Grand Hotel, blood pooling beneath him, his future stolen in a brutal act of betrayal. No one saw it coming. Malik's devoted dog, King, whimpered helplessly miles away as detectives descended upon the quiet scene, piecing together a twisted puzzle. Who would have imagined that the betrayal lay so close to home? Atlanta simmered beneath the summer sun of 2022, alive with possibility and thriving ambition. Nestled within the West End, Malik Johnson's cozy bungalow stood out distinctly, the bright yellow door symbolic of his vibrant personality. At 29, Malik was the city's golden boy, a marketing executive renowned for his magnetic charisma, impeccable style, and emotional intelligence. Beside him stood Andre Mitchell, a gentle and devoted middle school teacher, their bond clear to anyone fortunate enough to witness their chemistry. Together they planned their future, complete with children, another dog, and dreams of growing old side by side. Malik's chocolate lab, King, had been a constant presence since college, quietly observant, loyal beyond words. But King's unease around Malik's best friend, Tariq Ellis, was impossible to miss, an uneasy detail Malik continually brushed aside. For everyone else, life appeared picture-perfect, but shadows lurked behind every glowing success. Malik Johnson and Tariq Ellis had always been inseparable. High school brought them together, two teenagers with dreams bigger than their neighborhood. Malik's charm and ambition perfectly balanced Tariq's daring and humor. They had vowed never to leave each other behind. Malik kept his promise, constantly encouraging Tariq, believing in his potential even when no one else did. Yet life took different paths for the two friends. Malik soared, his career rising swiftly, while Tariq faltered, struggling to maintain even basic stability. Tariq felt increasingly trapped in Malik's shadow, resentment simmering beneath every smile and supportive gesture. Malik's engagement to Andre deepened this chasm, igniting feelings Tariq barely understood himself. He had always relied on Malik emotionally, his only constant in an uncertain life. Andre's presence signified not just a romantic rival, but the severance of their deep, lifelong bond. Andre had entered their lives gently but decisively, meeting Malik at a community fundraiser. Their instant connection was undeniable, their love story unfolding rapidly and deeply. Tariq watched from the sidelines, each interaction a painful reminder of his own stagnation. Worse still, Tariq found himself secretly drawn to Andre, his admiration morphing into an unwanted desire, manifesting itself in sarcastic jokes and bitter glances that Andre graciously overlooked. The growing success and happiness surrounding Malik felt like personal affronts to Tariq. Every celebratory event, each glowing compliment thrown Malik's way, intensified Tariq's internal voice, whispering his failures louder. He felt invisible, a man left behind by life, drowning silently in envy and inadequacy. Being Malik's best man initially felt like an honor, but as wedding plans solidified, Tariq realized his role was shrinking. Malik no longer needed him, not really. He had Andre, a promising career, a comfortable home, and King, the loyal pet who saw more than anyone else. Tariq felt discarded, the emotional dependency he'd nurtured becoming a bitter toxin poisoning his every thought. As the wedding drew closer, Tariq inserted himself obsessively into planning, playing the role of supportive best friend. Malik, trusting and grateful, even gave him a spare key to care for King during late nights. Yet King consistently showed unease, growling softly, always alert around Tariq, sensing something Malik refused to acknowledge. Despite this warning, Malik's trust remained unshakable. Tariq's plan took shape quietly beneath the facade of friendship, each passing day solidifying his resolve. Every kindness Malik offered only deepened Tariq's bitterness, setting the stage for betrayal that would shock an entire community. As wedding preparations escalated, subtle warnings emerged. Tariq's presence became oppressive, his insistence on involvement veering from friendly to invasive. Vendors reported missed calls and misplaced guest lists, small inconveniences Malik initially dismissed but which accumulated unsettlingly. Tariq's humor took on a sharper edge, sarcastic jokes more biting, masked bitterness more evident beneath his practiced smile. Andre quietly expressed his unease, noticing Tariq lingering too closely during private moments, his eyes unreadable yet unsettlingly intense. Malik laughed it off, trusting his lifelong friend implicitly. Friends began voicing quiet concerns, noticing subtle shifts in Tariq's demeanor at social gatherings, brooding silences, abrupt mood swings, and cryptic remarks about loyalty and friendship tested by success. Tariq would often appear uninvited, his presence hovering like an unspoken accusation. King's behavior also grew more noticeably protective. Normally a calm and affectionate dog, he would tense immediately upon Tariq's arrival, growling softly under his breath, pacing nervously around Malik. Even at tuxedo fittings and venue walkthroughs, King seemed alert, watchful of Tariq's every move, silently communicating distress Malik repeatedly ignored. Tariq's desperation for control became increasingly apparent. He started making unilateral decisions about wedding details, growing frustrated when Malik asserted his own preferences or deferred to Andre. When confronted gently by Andre about boundaries, Tariq's response bordered on aggressive, a startling escalation Malik struggled to justify. Yet, still blinded by loyalty, Malik hesitated to confront these mounting signs, brushing them aside as nerves or stress-induced quirks. Yet the most chilling red flag was Tariq's habit of watching Malik silently from afar during gatherings, eyes darkened with resentment. Guests noticed, uneasy about his intensity, but Malik's genuine heart refused to see the truth lurking beneath the surface of his friend's increasingly volatile facade. Tariq's demeanor continued deteriorating. His personal appearance, once meticulously maintained, started declining, subtle yet significant enough to alarm Malik's close friends. Conversations grew increasingly awkward as Tariq repeatedly questioned Malik's decisions, masked as friendly concern yet carrying unmistakable judgment. Malik started finding Tariq's presence exhausting rather than comforting, sensing something off but unable to fully articulate the danger. Tariq's interactions with King also grew harsher. Seemingly playful pats became borderline aggressive, resulting in King retreating whenever Tariq entered. These subtle but unsettling shifts began to form an unavoidable pattern. Despite Andre's gentle insistence and King's clear discomfort, Malik chose to remain hopeful, attributing Tariq's actions to temporary stress, unaware that these overlooked signals foreshadowed devastating betrayal. The night before the wedding was meant to be a celebration of brotherhood. Malik invited Tariq over for their traditional evening of old-school music, whiskey, and laughter. It was a tradition that dated back to college, a final bonding before big moments in life. But this night was thick with tension. Malik, ever sentimental, played throwback tracks from their high school years, smiling at memories while King curled up beside him, tail wagging gently. Tariq, however, was quieter than usual. He sipped his whiskey slowly, watching Malik with unreadable eyes. There were no jokes this time, no playful digs, just a heavy silence that settled between them like fog. Malik, unaware of the brewing storm, talked about honeymoon plans, a second dog, and the future with Andre. His eyes sparkled with anticipation. "I'm proud of you, man," Tariq said, voice low. Malik smiled, touched. "Not without you." But the words didn't land the way they once would have. Tariq looked away, jaw tight. Later that night, after Malik had gone to bed, Tariq stood in the darkened hallway for several minutes, staring at the family photos on the wall. In one, Malik held King as a puppy. In another, he stood next to Andre, smiling under fireworks. Tariq clenched his fists. He went outside for air, walking around the quiet block. He replayed every conversation over the last few months, every decision that seemed to push him out of Malik's life. The plans Malik made with Andre weren't just about the future. They were a door closing on the past. Returning to his car, Tariq opened the glove compartment and stared at the fabric-wrapped wrench. He ran his fingers over the metal slowly, thoughtfully, then closed it again. In his pocket was a burner phone. A message had already been sent. "Tomorrow, midnight, be ready." He looked up at Malik's home, warm light spilling through the curtains, the sound of laughter faintly audible from inside. Tariq exhaled, a long, trembling breath. "One last toast," he whispered to himself. The wedding day dawned warm and golden, a gentle breeze carrying laughter from the hotel courtyard as guests arrived in waves of color and celebration. Malik had been radiant that morning, brushing King's fur one last time before leaving the bungalow, adjusting his cufflinks with a quiet pride as he kissed Andre goodbye. Everything was in place. By evening, the reception suite buzzed with anticipation. Malik, dressed in cream and gold, moved through the room like sunlight. Tariq, the best man, stayed close, his smile wide, eyes unreadable. Just after 11 p.m., Tariq pulled Malik aside, his voice lowered to a conspiratorial whisper. Got something for you, he said. A little surprise before the night ends. It's in the car, your honeymoon gift. Malik laughed. You really didn't have to, man. Tariq smiled. Come on. 2 minutes. The two slipped out through the rear of the hotel, away from music and dancing, into the cooler night. Cameras later captured them walking down the back lot, Malik smiling, unsuspecting. They reached the edge of the parking garage. Tariq unlocked the car, motioned to the trunk, then stepped to the side. Malik leaned in. That was the moment. Tariq struck from behind, fast, deliberate. The wrench, wrapped in a towel, hit Malik's head with a dull, sickening thud. Malik collapsed with a grunt, dazed, then cried out, Tariq, what the hell? Why? A second blow silenced him. Tariq stood over Malik's body, breath heaving, wrench trembling in his hands. There was no scream, no rage, just silence and the buzz of insects. The night air stilled. He dragged Malik behind a nearby dumpster, wiping the wrench with the towel and hiding it beneath his passenger seat. He removed a folded note from his coat, typed on Andre's old stationery, forged in his handwriting, and tucked it into Malik's pocket. It hinted at an affair gone wrong. A desperate decision. He didn't stop there. Tariq took a photo of Malik's body with a burner phone and sent it to an encrypted contact with the words, done. The accomplice had never met Malik, but the message meant he could proceed with Phase 2, planting misleading evidence. Back at the hotel, Tariq entered the men's room and carefully scrubbed beneath his fingernails. He examined his reflection in the mirror, just long enough to practice the grief he'd soon need to perform. Then he rejoined the crowd, lifting a glass of champagne and delivering a shaky, heartfelt toast to love, loyalty, and new beginnings. He smiled as Andre thanked him for his words, his hand lingering too long on Andre's shoulder. Before leaving, Tariq stopped to pet King, who had been brought in for photos. The lab growled low and deep, fur raised. Tariq froze, then smirked. Still don't like me, huh? Smart dog. The hotel staff cleaning the lot would find Malik at sunrise, but not before Tariq had already checked out, citing a last-minute family emergency. He left no trace in his room. No fingerprints on the wrench. No sign of the burner phone, which he smashed and discarded along the I-20 bypass. Later that night, Tariq parked near the river and stared at the sky for an hour. When he finally drove away, his face was calm, almost peaceful. He whispered to the darkness, he had everything, and I had nothing. As the guests laughed and posed for photos that would later become evidence, the man who'd ended it all danced to their joy. Earlier that day, Malik had confided in Tariq one last time, nervously opening up about his hopes and fears for marriage. I know it won't be perfect, Malik had said, sipping champagne on the hotel balcony, but I've never been more certain about anything. I want this. He smiled so earnestly, so vulnerably, that for a flicker of a second, Tariq hesitated. But the hatred had already taken root. That moment of clarity passed like a breeze. News of Malik's murder rippled through Atlanta like a thunderclap. The morning news broke the story before breakfast, flashing images of Malik's beaming smile alongside crime scene tape. Shock turned quickly into disbelief. How could someone so loved, so vibrant, be gone in such a brutal and mysterious way? Andre collapsed when police arrived to deliver the news. At first, he didn't understand. Malik was supposed to be at brunch. They were supposed to walk King together. He had his phone in hand, preparing to call when the knock came. The bungalow grew cold with grief. King, sensing the shift, whined and paced for hours by the door, pawing at Malik's shoes and curling up on the welcome mat. Neighbors brought casseroles and candles. Andre just sat in silence, cradling Malik's favorite hoodie. Suspicion arrived quickly, too. The note found in Malik's pocket sent the case in a confusing direction. Was this suicide? A lover's quarrel? Detectives combed through Malik's phone, messages, and email. Nothing supported the story in the forged letter. In fact, it raised more questions. Hotel staff were interviewed, surveillance footage reviewed, and slowly inconsistencies began to emerge. Tariq's account of the night seemed shaky. He claimed he left early, but he was seen on camera much later than he stated. His alibi, his supposed family emergency, had no verifiable backup. Andre, still dazed, struggled to speak about the evening. When asked about Tariq, his eyes hardened. He was acting strange, Andre said softly. Too calm, too present. And then there was King. When detectives visited the bungalow and Tariq dropped by, King's reaction was immediate. Ears pinned, growling low and steady, eyes locked on Tariq like a predator. One officer made note of it in the report. Dog's behavior changed dramatically. displays aggression only toward suspect. In the days that followed, Andre replayed every interaction in his head. The way Tariq hovered at the rehearsal dinner, the offhand comment about being replaced, even the toast that felt too rehearsed. Andre opened up more in his second interview. He looked at Malik like he wanted to be him, or wanted what he had. Detectives took it seriously. They began digging deeper. Tariq's phone records, his financials, his social media. A pattern emerged. Late-night searches. Deleted messages. A second prepaid phone. An encrypted message trail that didn't quite vanish. The circle began to tighten. As the hours passed, the pieces began to shift into place. What once seemed like a tragedy, cloaked in confusion, was beginning to take shape. Malik's loved ones, especially Andre, started voicing suspicions louder. It didn't add up. Malik wouldn't run. He wouldn't leave without a word. And he sure as hell wouldn't take his own life on the night before he was set to marry the love of his life. One detective made the call to re-interview everyone. "Start with the best man," she said. "Start with Tariq." The re-interview with Tariq started as cordial, even routine. He maintained his story. He left early, had a family emergency, didn't notice anything odd, but detectives had already reviewed surveillance footage, and they knew he had been at the venue later than he claimed. When pressed, Tariq stammered slightly, a flicker of nervousness. Investigators leaned into the inconsistencies. They pointed out time-stamped discrepancies, raised questions about the forged note. Tariq brushed them off, but his confidence had begun to waver. Then came the phone records. Detectives pulled the logs from Tariq's main phone, and then from a second, prepaid burner number linked to anonymous calls and texts sent in the days leading up to the wedding. Messages like, "Everything's still on, and he won't see it coming." Search warrants were obtained for Tariq's car and apartment. In the trunk, forensic teams recovered blood traces and fabric fibers matching Malik's tuxedo. Underneath the passenger seat, the towel that had wrapped the wrench. It didn't end there. On a backup drive retrieved from Tariq's closet, investigators found a folder of audio memos. One was chilling. "He chose him over me," Tariq said in a whisper, almost like a confession. "And tomorrow it ends." They confronted Tariq again. He denied everything, claimed the messages were fake, said the wrench must have been planted. But the web was tightening. Witness statements from hotel staff painted an image of Tariq lurking around restricted areas late that night. King's behavior also became part of the case. The dog's repeated aggression toward Tariq, paired with his calm demeanor around everyone else, helped further the suspicion. A canine behavior expert was brought in, who confirmed King's response was consistent with trauma association. By now, the DA's office was preparing charges. Investigators tied the fake suicide note to an old document Andre had once posted online, providing Tariq access to the handwriting style. A handwriting analyst confirmed the forgery. Tariq's browser history wasn't the only damning element. Detectives traced the burner phone's activity and confirmed that on the night of the murder, it pinged off a tower directly adjacent to the hotel, precisely where Malik was last seen on surveillance. The recipient of Tariq's messages admitted under pressure that he had been paid to create misleading evidence, including a second forged note to be found later. Meanwhile, the wrench, cleaned but not well enough, yielded partial fingerprints, and the towel still bore fibers that matched those from Malik's tuxedo. Forensic analysts concluded it had been used to muffle the blow, a detail only someone present would know. Public pressure mounted as local news outlets picked up the story. The community demanded justice. Friends of Malik began speaking out, sharing stories of Tariq's envy and behavior in the weeks leading up to the wedding. A close friend recounted an eerie exchange where Tariq muttered, "Malik always gets everything." As investigators dug deeper, they discovered Tariq's recent financial activity, an unexplained withdrawal of $2,000 days before the murder. The recipient, a man later identified as the burner phone's original buyer. When traced, this man admitted he had been hired anonymously to distract police with planted evidence. Though he never saw Tariq's face, the bank transaction and digital communications sealed the connection. Forensic linguists analyzed the fake suicide note and matched it to writing patterns in Tariq's old texts and journal entries recovered from a cloud backup. Combined with metadata showing when the document was created, it painted a clear picture of premeditation. Prosecutors meticulously assembled the timeline. When Tariq sent the payment, when the wrench was purchased, when he accessed Andre's old documents for handwriting samples. They even recovered metadata from an edited text file, proof the suicide note had been created days before the murder. A grand jury was convened. The case was presented in full: audio recordings, search histories, the fake note, Tariq's timeline lies, King's response, and the accomplice's testimony. Every thread wove a noose. By the time the indictment was handed down, prosecutors had built a narrative that was as airtight as it was heartbreaking: a crime of obsession, resentment, and cold-blooded betrayal. The courtroom was packed on the day Tariq Ellis stood trial. Reporters lined the benches, sketch artists filled their pads, and Malik's friends and family occupied the front row, silent, hearts heavy. Andre sat beside Malik's mother, clutching her hand, King's leash wrapped tightly around his own. The prosecution opened with a piercing declaration. This was not a crime of passion. This was a meticulously orchestrated betrayal. They detailed the evidence piece by piece: Tariq's motive rooted in deep-seated envy, the premeditated actions, the chilling audio confession. Each exhibit, from browser histories to burner phones, painted the picture of a man who had planned, plotted, and struck without remorse. Tariq's defense team argued mental instability. They painted him as emotionally overwhelmed, clinging to a bond he feared losing. But even their own psychologist testified that Tariq was not insane, merely consumed by resentment. The turning point came when a forensic audio specialist authenticated Tariq's voice in the recording. The jury sat frozen as his whisper echoed through the courtroom. He chose him over me, and tomorrow it ends. Andre took the stand, his voice steady but raw. Malik loved him like a brother, trusted him with everything, and Tariq used that trust to destroy him. Tears welled but did not fall. He didn't just kill my fiancée, he stole our future. The prosecution rested its case after calling the accomplice to the stand. Though anonymous during the crime, the man's testimony confirmed payment, instructions, and even a code word: toast. A simple nod to the final drink they shared. In closing arguments, the DA held up a framed photo of Malik with King, taken just days before the wedding. This man had everything to live for, everything but protection from someone he called family. The jury deliberated for just over 4 hours, guilty, on all counts. The judge sentenced Tariq to life without the possibility of parole. No emotion flickered across his face, not regret, not fear, just emptiness. Outside, the crowd erupted, some in relief, some in mourning. Andre wept quietly into King's fur, surrounded by friends who now felt like family. Reporters swarmed, but no one answered. There was nothing left to say. But one voice lingered, Malik's mother, in a brief statement: "We lost a light, but we will make sure it shines on." In the weeks following the verdict, the world moved on, but Malik's absence echoed in the lives of those who loved him. His bungalow, once filled with laughter and the rhythmic clack of a keyboard, now stood quiet. The yellow door faded under the sun, the paint peeling slightly. Inside, King waited by it every evening, ears perked toward footsteps that would never return. Andre, though shattered, found purpose in the pain. He established the Malik Johnson Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to mentoring young black men in marketing and media. Scholarships were awarded in Malik's name, and outreach programs were launched in Atlanta schools. He also began a therapy initiative focused on pet companionship, highlighting the bond Malik had with King. On what would have been their anniversary, Andre walked to the park with King. He sat on their favorite bench and pulled out a small photo. Malik, mid-laugh, holding King like a child. A breeze rustled through the trees. For a moment it felt like Malik was there. "I miss you," Andre whispered. King nuzzled his knee. Justice had been served, but grief lingered in spaces both silent and loud. In the quiet of the house, in the way Malik's favorite mug sat untouched, in the gentle way Andre spoke to King, as if speaking to both of them. But love lingered too. In stories shared, in scholarships granted, in the tail that wagged a little every time someone said Malik's name. His legacy wasn't only in tragedy, it was in the lives he touched, the hearts he lifted, and the strength he passed on to those left behind. Subscribe for more shocking true crime stories.